What up, what up, what up? Thank you for joining Simba's Lounge. So this is something that just kind of just dropped in my lap, shall I say. I just happened to come home after heading out and chilling with my homegirl after going to the gym, and we went out to eat to some Bangladesh restaurant. When I tell you it was just off the chain. The food was delicious. But anyway, let's get right to it. About him suing UMG. No, I'm not talking about him suing Payola. No, I'm not talking about, the allegations against him trying to stop Not Like Us being played at the Super Bowl. I am talking about something that was already actually talked about and had quieted down. But now it looks like everything is coming back up. And what I'm talking about is the unaliving of the rapper XXXTENTACION. Lord, forgive me if that was, not the way to pronounce his name. The viewers, forgive me if that wasn't the way to pronounce his name. But hey, count me out here. Bear with me. But it looks like one of the individuals who was convicted of unaliving the rapper is now appealing the decision that was made in the trial, because everyone, has the right to a fair trial. And he is saying, and if I'm not mistaken, the driver who was convicted, he is saying that he did not have a fair trial. And then also too, that Drake, BBL Drizzy, was possibly involved in some of this. If not involved, he should be looked at. And this is a lot. I mean, 2024 is not the year for Drake. Not at all. And then going into 2025 in the Super Bowl, sir. Yeah, with your name being brought up now, and you have gone after UMG label, Daddy Lucian, and Payola and some of these big wigs, do you think that protection that you had before is still there? I don't know. Let's go. We're going to have to go ahead and get right into this. All right. Let's go.
You are as guilty as they are, because you were an essential part of that crime. When you went to spend that blood money on sneakers and jerseys, you revealed to the court the value you place on the human life that was taken.
One of the men convicted in the 2018 murder of rapper XXXTentacion is now appealing his conviction, and his legal team is focusing a lot of their attention on a major celebrity, Drake. We are going to explain the connections and the arguments as we sit down with Mauricio Padilla, the attorney for the convicted killer, Dedrick Devon Williams. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Dedrick Devon Williams, who's behind bars for life for murdering rapper XXXTentacion, is now appealing his case, his conviction, his sentence, on the grounds that he did not receive a fair trial. And this is in part due to what his attorneys say is the exclusion of evidence that pointed the finger, or maybe pointed the finger, at other people. And one of those people whose name has come up is rapper Drake. So I want to quickly get you up to speed on this case before we get into these new allegations, these new arguments. Maybe they're not necessarily new if you break down this case. So last year,
like I was saying,
3 men, including Williams, were convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the 2018 killing of the star rapper. And to be more precise, they were convicted of first-degree murder and armed robbery in connection with the shooting death of the 20-year-old artist whose legal name was Jose Onfoy. Now, the jury deliberated a lot. They deliberated for a little more than 7 days before returning a guilty verdict. This was for Michael Boatwright, Dedrick Williams, and Trayvon Newsom. Now, this murder occurred on June 18th, 2018, outside of Riva Motorsports. It's a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach. It's a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And XXXTentacion had just withdrawn $50,000 in cash from a bank. He was leaving the store with a friend when his BMW was blocked by an SUV. In fact, surveillance footage.
Yeah, no. So I just have a quick question. I just have a quick question. Now, I know for me, if I'm withdrawing $50,000, I'm gonna want to have like a bodyguard. I'm gonna need like an escort. I'm gonna need a security guard. Yeah, I'm gonna have to have some protection. That's a lot of money. I mean, to him it probably wasn't, but still, that's a lot of money. Dang. Yeah, I would have to have a security guard or something to protect myself. I know his friend was with him, but man, can't be caught slipping not with that. Somehow word got back or something. I don't know. Let's continue watching.
From the scene actually captures this shocking moment as two masked gunmen, later identified as Boatwright and Newsom, emerged from the vehicle, confronted the rapper at his driver's side window. There is a brief but very violent exchange with one of the men shooting XXX.
And his friend getting away like that, I mean, I know it wasn't much his friend probably could have done, especially if he didn't have, anything on him as well to even try to fire back. But dang, to know that you left your friend back there, possibly your best friend, and man.
Repeatedly. Afterwards, they snatch a Louis Vuitton bag containing the cash that the rapper had just withdrawn, and they speed away in the SUV. Williams was accused of being the driver of that SUV. And the friend, by the way, who was with XXXTENTACION during that attack wasn't injured, but he witnessed the murder. And the jury's deliberation was lengthy, but ultimately they concluded that the evidence presented by the prosecution was sufficient. It was beyond a reasonable doubt, enough to convict all three defendants. And that evidence included the surveillance footage. It included cell phone videos of the defendants flashing cash right after the shooting. It included incriminating text messages
Always
from
telling on
Boatwright,
yourself.
including one right after the shooting saying, "Tell my brother I got money for the new phone." And then, just minutes after that, sending in a separate text message a news article about XXX getting shot. And I also have to mention the key testimony of the trio's accomplice, Richard Allen, who claimed that he was a part of this robbery and he implicated the defendants. He pled guilty to second-degree murder for his role in this killing. As I mentioned, Williams is appealing this decision, and a big focus of this is on Drake. It's also other issues that they're bringing up, so I want to get into it right now. And for that, I want to bring on Williams' defense attorney, Mauricio Padilla. Thank you so much for coming on, Mauricio. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for coming on right afterwards. So I wanted to talk about this with you, and we're going to get into more specifics of the appeal. But overall, big picture, big theme, what are you and the rest of the defense counsel arguing here?
Well, I am not arguing it. I'm not his appellate attorney. I was the trial counsel. So I'm just referencing what Mr. Patanzo, which is his appellate attorney, has stated in the brief. There's so many errors that it takes a while to even break it down. One of the main errors in my opinion in the case, which I had to sit through, argue, and live it, was the fact that in December of 2020, I filed a witness list. The state's reaction to that was to file a motion saying, we want the court to strike all of his witnesses, that's not even something that's legal or that you could do. You have to itemize who you want stricken. You just can't shotgun approach and say, I want all of his defense witnesses stricken. But the state attorney did that. In a hearing that I had to defend, myself to that in that motion, the court didn't grant that, but the court instructed me to file a pleading, which was the nexus in my defense witnesses and what nexus they had to my theory of defense, which I argued was inappropriate because at the end of the day, you're ordering me to give the state a blueprint of what my defense is going to be. But I was ordered to do it, and I did it. When prior to Mr. Onfroy, which I'll refer to him as X for this interview because his stage name was XXXTENTACION, which was the victim in this case. Prior to him being murdered, he had posted on Instagram, if anybody kills me, I'm snitching right now. It's champagne poppy. I'm paraphrasing, but something to that effect, right? So,
Man.
Imagine the decedent said prior to his death, if anybody kills me, it's Champagne Poppy, which is Drake's Instagram name. I laid out in extreme detail all of my defense witnesses list, which included many rappers, because at the end of the day, the victim in this case was a rapper. He had feuds, ongoing public feuds with not only Drake, but a lot of rappers that are either signed to OVO or related to Drake in some way, including 600 Breezy, which is a Chicago-based rapper, and a rapper that's from Toronto by the name of, he goes by Top 5, which is Hassan Ali. And I had to lay that all out in detail. The court was fully aware of my theory of defense. Prior to that, I filed a motion to perpetuate the testimony of Livingston Allen, which goes by the name of DJ Academics, because DJ Academics was friends with X and had posted long YouTube, content regarding this beef. He actually posted YouTube saying that he was on the phone with X discussing the issue and the beef that he had with Drake, and specifically X had either said or posted something about Drake's mom, and he had posted a picture of a Drake lookalike with semen on his face, and he wanted DJ Academics to.
Ooh. I mean, there are a lot of Drake Glazers out there, so I mean that could have been the picture for the the mascot picture, the main picture for the Drake Glazers. So I don't know.
Posted on his own site, and he said, I'm not going to do that. And in that conversation, DJ Academic says that you better be careful, because even though, like, and I'm paraphrasing again, even though he's not a gangster, you may be pushing him. As a reaction to that conversation, X goes and says that he takes it out off the post off of his website or off of IG, and he says that his Instagram was hacked. I laid that out in my motion to perpetuate the testimony.
Question. Like, why does DJ Academic, like, why does he have to be in the midst of everything? I know he has his platform. I'm just now coming to this whole YouTube world anyway, so I'm just trying to feel my way in and navigate through and even try to gain a follower or 3. But it just seems like Ak is in a lot of mess. He's definitely informative. I know he paved the way for a lot of these podcasters and etc. But it's just like, you're using your platform to I guess pump fire or pump wind into that fire, to flame the fire, with some of these issues that's going on. It's like you thrive for the beef. I guess because you're not necessarily in the middle of it, but you have access to the information or to the people that's actually involved. So it's just, sir, at some point, which you have been investigated for certain allegations, like, bruh, I don't need you to switch it up just a little bit, so you won't keep putting yourself in all these situations. I'm just saying. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe Ak is a saint. Maybe he means well. He doesn't want to cause drama.
Which a motion to perpetuate testimony is when you have a witness that is relevant to your defense and that lives beyond the jurisdictional limits of the court, and that you feel that you're not going to be able to bring them into court. So I'm basically asking the court to allow me to go to California or wherever I have to go, depose this individual, and now with his deposition, if he doesn't show up, I could use it in my defense or in my case in chief, right? So I did that, argued it to the court.
Hold on. I know I'm stopping, y'all. I know I'm stopping. Hey, I'm new to this. Bear with me. So it sounds like he's gonna try to get Ak to testify or try to, recall the conversation that he had with XXX. He's gonna have to come forward with some information. He's gonna have to be transparent and spill out the truth, whatever it was, or whatever that he knew was going on between Drake and him. What he meant by that, don't push Drake. It's about to get messy. All right, let's go.
And the court, in a reaction, basically said, I'm not going to grant your motion to perpetuate testimony. Just take his depo. let's just take it. So, okay, fine. I set a notice of hearing, went and served Drake in his castle in Beverly Hills.
There's something that you mentioned, and I want to talk about this. So first of all, there was this deposition that was taken of XXXTentacion's mother, Cleopatra Bernard. She testified that Onfroy had this ongoing feud with Mr. Graham, Aubrey Graham Drake. She said this feud with Graham included throwing shots at Onfroy and lyrics from one of Graham's songs. You mentioned that controversial statement that he made, if anyone tries to kill me, it was champagne poppy. The question I want to start with as we get into the Drake conversation, were you arguing, or is the appellate attorneys arguing that Drake was a part of this killing, that he was the one who did this, or are you arguing that it should have just been allowed, you should have been allowed to present evidence to suggest there were other potential leads that law enforcement really didn't look at into this case? So again, what are exactly we suggesting? Are you suggesting that Drake had a part in it, or that just it wasn't looked into and it shows a sloppy investigation and not a fair trial?
Well, in the brief and in what I was arguing in court is the latter. We are a defendant has every right to defend himself and to show reasonable doubt wherever it may be, and to fully investigate and articulate to a jury an alternate shooter defense, or an alternate, a defense where someone else, committed this crime. Am I going to sit here and tell you that Drake was holding a gun or Drake? But the facts, as they are stated by X's own mother, is that she knew about the beef with Drake and with Migos. She knew about the violence between Migos and her son, where there was a violent episode. She knew about 600 Breezy, which is a known admitted gang member from Chicago, going to South Florida and posting on social media saying that he's blicked up, which means that I have a gun, and she was concerned about it. She testified in the depot that she discussed it with her son. She testified that the reason that she wanted additional security with him the day he died was because of this beef with Migos and everything that we're discussing. So it was relevant, and for many months in the trial, January, February, even February 7th of 2023, the judge is agreeing with me. Okay, now there comes a moment and a hearing. He goes ahead and Drake hires after the judge enters a rule to show cause, basically saying a purge date. You have to appear for depo on this day, or I'm going to do a writ of bodily attachment. He then goes and hires Brad Cohen, a friend of the show, friend of mine as well, an excellent attorney. And Brad files several motions, motion to quash the subpoena, and he files a motion for protective order. We go back and forth, and the judge says, and the first time that Brad shows up to court, he says, you know what, I'm gonna quash the rule to show cause. He's hired counsel. You guys can communicate and figure out when this step was gonna happen. Okay, so we go back and forth. We can't agree to it for various reasons, and I'm not gonna get into settlement negotiations
Sure.
On the show, but we can't agree. We go into court February 24th, I believe, on his motions. At that time, James Beard, which is the process server that served Drake, appeared as a witness, and I wanted to show video that he took of the actual attempted service, where it shows Drake's bodyguards, or the people that are in front of his house, refusing to cooperate. It showed one of Drake's employees kicking the subpoena down the road that leads to his mansion, and the judge didn't allow me to show that. Despite not allowing me to put forth that evidence, the judge did a 180 from telling me to figure it out, coordinate it, take the depo, did a 180, told me, why are you involving him? Granted the motion for protective order, granted the motion to quash my subpoena, allowed Mr. Cohen to argue California law without having a California expert there, and basically kind of chastised me about why are you bringing them into it. And as a matter of fact, we had taken the deposition of one of X's relatives regarding regarding this beef, and she denied it. And the court said in open court, even, his relative said that it didn't exist. And I said, yeah, well, she's lying because the whole world knows about this beef. So for her to sit here and say that she didn't know about it it's on her credibility. So despite all of this, he does a 180. He not only grants the motion for protective order, basically saying that I can now serve him again.
Okay.
And it quashes the subpoena, but the state attorney, sensing there's blood in the water, says, Judge, I'm going to renew my motion to strike all his witnesses. Okay? Or tennis, no notice. And he says, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to strike Mr. Graham.
Look, now, I'm no lawyer. I wanted to be one growing up. I wanted to go to law school, but different things happened. And, or I wanted to go to, college and law school. And, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. But yeah, this seems a little, this seemed a little shaky. This seemed a little shaky, especially with Drake. Of course, Drake worth all that money. And this is alleged, so I don't know if he's involved or was he involved. But, Drake with all that money, especially, the record labels investing so much in him throughout his career, they weren't going to let this happen. They weren't going to let this happen at all. However, my thing is, if someone is murdered, yes, there was video of them getting, their life being taken. However, if that person before their life is taken actually states that, hey, if anything were to happen to me, this person did it, I would think the judge, everybody and their mama will want this person testifying, a deposition or something, being investigated in regard to this person being unalived. That's just me. But when you got the power and you got the money and you got people protecting you, this stuff like this is what happens. This is what happens. And this is what sound like happened. However, this go round, I don't know if Drake will actually be protected. I don't know if this will get swept under the rug. I don't know if it'll easily be a thing to where he doesn't have to testify and they just, throw this out the door again. I don't know. Why? Because he is now suing or trying to sue UMG, as some of you all already know, and Payola and etc. So your daddy Lucian that you're trying to sue, the record label, I don't know, Drakey. I don't know if he's going to protect you on this one. I don't know if you're going to have that protective shield. Yeah, this is not your year, 2024. And now you're about to be a part of this appeal. All right, let's go. There's too much talking anyways. Let's see what we got.
So he struck in the middle of the trial. He struck Drake from my witness list, which is completely inappropriate, considering the history of the case.
Talk to me real quick about why you think the judge did this, because in the appellate brief, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is an accusation that the court might have been biased because of Drake's celebrity status. Correct me if that allegation is wrong. And in your opinion, why do you believe the court ultimately wouldn't allow the deposition of Drake?
I'll say that Judge Usan was a complete gentleman to me, and it was a pleasure to try the case in front of him. I do think that he made various reversible errors, and I think from the beginning he made a lot of calls that were unconstitutional, not legal. This being one of them. I don't want to speculate as to why, but when you're dealing with someone like Drake, which he's not a celebrity, he's a super celebrity. He's like in the stratosphere of fame. So when a judge does a 180 like that, I'll let the viewers or other people figure out why they think that it happened. But I'm not gonna speculate as to why it happened. But
no, I get that. I do want to ask you about this, because this is another part of the appeal. And that is with respect to the testimony of this gang expert, which was excluded in a pretrial hearing. And the defense, my understanding, wanted to call Jesse De La Cruz, who they had claimed, discovered visual evidence that Drake could have had ties to the same organization as a co-defendant in this case, Robert Allen. And I believe the brief states, Dr. Cruz's research revealed photos of Mr. Graham throwing the same gang signs as Allen, and Allen is that accomplice who I mentioned before who testified against his co-defendant.
Drake trying to be
Cruz
something he's
also
not.
revealed that people who knew Drake were allegedly seen in XXXTentacion's neighborhood threatening him before he died. The brief reads, social media posts showed these same known Graham associates were seen in Onfroy's neighborhood threatening him just prior to the murder. And then they say even more revealing is this connection that Cruz made to Drake's song lyrics, because shortly after XXX was killed, the brief writes, Mr. Graham released a song entitled Triple X with suspicious lyrics. SMS Triple X, that's the only time I shot below the neck. And Dr. Cruz found another connection between the murder and Drake's lyrics in the song I'm Upset. The song I'm Upset contains lyrics regarding Louis bags for body bags.
And you know what? That right there, I don't care if you're innocent. I don't care if you had a beef. I don't care, whatever it may be. And people already during this time was alleging that Drake had something to do with unaliving this other rapper. Why in the world would you, even if it's not true, try to double down on it by putting those type of lyrics in your songs? It doesn't make any sense. It shows that you're heartless. You don't have no empathy, sympathy. And it's a possibility that you could have been a part of this whole situation. Of course, you're not going to do it yourself. You wouldn't want to do it yourself because you don't want it to come back to you. However, this go round, it may be just a little bit different. I think you bit off more than you can chew, especially now that you've gone after your daddy Lucian of UMG. Like, I don't know if you're going to be able to be protected. Your name is already being dragged through the mud now. You don't have too many people backing you now. And now that this comes about all of a sudden, I feel like your protection was taken off. Somehow, word got out. And now, this is where we are. This is where we are. Damn. If you haven't already, please hit the like, subscribe, share. Do something. Help me out. Help your boy out here. You know, I'm just trying to gain a couple of followers. Like I said, I'm new to these YouTube streets, but yeah. All right, let's go. Let's continue. See what we got.
Implication there being that Drake was referencing murder, but ultimately Cruz was completely excluded from the trial, and the jury did not hear any of his findings. Mauricio, I have that right, and can you can you emphasize that a little bit more? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. Okay. So Dr. De La Cruz did proffer to the court everything that you've stated regarding the song lyrics, the fact that Drake was throwing gang signs that were the same gang signs that Allen was throwing up in different social media posts. The court strikes Dr. De La Cruz, which is a known gang expert and well known in his field, has testified over 150 times in trials. They allowed the state to put their own gang expert, Detective Polo, which really bolstered a lot of what Dr. De La Cruz said regarding the necessity to bring out this testimony. I don't believe that based on Daubert, which is the case that we look at when analyzing whether an expert if it's appropriate for an expert to testify. I don't believe that was a legal call. I think it was error for him to do that and not allow us to put forth that testimony. And we put up right, pictures of Drake really with Lil Wayne throwing up a Bloods gang sign and other evidence that Drake is out there flaunting gang ties. We put forth evidence of Hassan Ali, which is top 5 out there openly claiming on social media and video that he's Drake's shooter. And part of the theory of defense is to show, listen, even though these people are entertainers, okay, there's a gang related portion of it. There's a gang related side to it. And X's own mother testified that she knew about this, that she knew about when 600 Breezy traveled from wherever he was, whether Chicago to South Florida. She knew about it. She talked to him about it. So this case had more than ample evidence and ample reason to involve a gang expert.
To be clear, though, you were allowed to argue that someone else could have been responsible for this killing because you cross-examined Allen on cross-examination, suggesting that he had this link to Drake. But my understanding is you're arguing now that the trial court had put limits on your cross-examination of Allen, that violated your client's rights. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, you're 100% correct. But they did it not only with Allen, but they did it all throughout the trial.
Okay.
With Allen admitted that his father, known drug dealer, known firearms dealer, as the brief states, produced at least one of the guns that was used in this. When I asked him about his father and ties to Toronto and drug dealing, the state objected, and the judge didn't allow that question.
Oh, wow.
So it was a constant battle for me to try and basically
They
do
were
my
shuffling
job
money.
and show where reasonable doubt existed.
They were shuffling some money in that trial.
With Allen, with Detective Curcio, the problem here is also that the state attorney, on direct of the lead of Detective Curcio, which was the lead detective in the case, she asked, "Do you have any information that Drake was involved in this?" And that was before the court struck him. So whatever the reasons may have existed, the moment that the state attorney opens up their mouth and says that, now he's really at issue, because now
You're opening the door. You're opening the door to that coming in.
Yes. And not only was it an issue of her mentioning it with Detective Curcio, but she asked him, you actually were able to verify whether or not Drake was in South Florida at the time. So in cross-examination, I asked, why would you have to verify if he was in South Florida? Why? Because he's a person of interest. And then I had to further ask, well, what did you do to, and I'm paraphrasing, what did you do to figure out whether he was in South Florida? He says, oh, my partner checked social media. So then I said, okay, so in a homicide case, the best that Broward Sheriff's Office has for a jury is to peep his Instagram. So it was basically breaking down the poor job that BSO did in their investigation and the tunnel vision that they had, and the fact that none of this was in the report. So you felt it important enough to check and verify whether or not he was in South Florida, but you never memorialized it in your report, and I'm not allowed to ask about it.
Well, did he also testified, Detective Curcio, that he learned that Onfroy, XXX, had been attacked by members of Migos, right? Migos is the rap group that's associated with Drake. Was that came in, and again, you weren't able to expand upon that?
Not only did that come in, but when I asked him in cross-examination, isn't it true that the first time that the name Migos comes out in this case was a month after the murder, in the first conversation that you yourself had with the cooperating co-defendant Allen? He didn't remember. I had to refresh his recollection, and right there in the transcribed conversation, it basically showed that Allen, the cooperator, said the name Migos in the first conversation that they had. So it basically showed that I wasn't making this up. Like, I'm not creating it. The facts were there before I even ever alleged their involvement or filed a motion in court. They're checking to see whether or not Drake is in South Florida. That was years before I mentioned it. And Allen is saying is talking about Migos to the lead detective a month after the murder. This is years before I filed anything regarding my theory of defense. So it was just to show that this is part of the case.
Right. And the argument is that your client didn't get a fair shake, didn't get a fair trial because you couldn't expand upon this and introduce this. I want to move quickly past Drake and ask you a couple different questions about this appeal. Speaking about Detective Curcio, I understand that there's also an objection that your team has with him providing opinion testimony on cell phone data. Can you talk about that real quick, what the issue was with Detective Curcio there?
Okay, well, the issue is that Broward County did not list a forensic expert, okay? And they tried to put forth expert testimony through someone by the name of Canvani and through Detective Curcio, and the court allowed them to give expert opinion as to locations of cell phones and things that are specifically left to experts, because when you list somebody as an expert, then that opens up the doors to discovery that we can take depositions of them and put us on notice to the specific details that they're going to testify to as an expert. That didn't happen in this case. And what they allowed was this individual named Campani. They allowed him to basically put forth expert testimony, and he put forth like a visual aid that he had prepared a week prior to his testimony. Okay, we were ambushed with it, and there he basically put little dots where he testified where the cell phones were exactly, and they allowed Detective Curcio to also give that type of testimony. Now, Detective Curcio's extreme.
Oh, forgive me. This man in his neck, I just can't get past it. Like what this chin strap, like what is going on? It's distracting. Lord forgive me, because that ain't right. What would Jesus wouldn't make fun of this man. But Lord, you know what? Let me keep going.
Extremely experienced. I'm not going to take that away from him, and this individual Campani as well. But just because you're experienced doesn't take away the obligation of Broward County to do things correctly. This is a murder case, and a high-profile one at that.
There's a number of different other points that are raised in this appeal. There's things like allowing prior bad acts to come into this trial, allowing an out-of-court statement from defendant Newsom, which you argue was his Williams defense attorneys are saying was prejudicial. If you can, what's another big area of appeal? Is it any of those two that you really think could be problematic? Why your client? Again, I guess the idea is he deserves a new trial, right?
Yes, yes, and the two things that you mentioned are pretty egregious. The one of the Newsom is really shocking. Like, they basically on redirect of Detective Curcio asked them questions and brought in a hearsay statement regarding a completely separate murder investigation that he says that he found without authenticating the cell phone, and basically said that Newsom had told somebody in some dating app or something that he had buried money in his house. And so the judge buried money, he could be catching life, and a really incriminating statement. But Detective Curcio didn't have to authenticate that. They didn't have to show what cell phone it came from. Basically, he just said, I saw this in another case. And the problem is that my client is sitting at the same table with this individual that now the court has allowed this, extremely prejudicial information to come in. So that was a humongous reversible error, in my opinion, that affected not only my client's case, but everybody that was sitting there at table, including all the co-defendants.
Moving forward, though, what can we expect in terms of a timeline of appeal? When will this be heard? When will this be decided? If a new trial is granted, how does that work? Because now it's about the timeline of events. What should we expect?
You know what? I don't practice appellate law, and those are questions that I don't really want to give misleading answers to.
Okay,
so I don't want to give the wrong answers regarding appellate. I don't really do appellate law, but at some point they're going to file a responsive brief, and I think that the court could invite. I think the way it is nowadays, the court can invite oral argument. When I first started practicing law, you had the right to give oral argument. I think now it's only by invitation when the appellate court wants to hear your arguments. But yeah, I mean, listen, when I read this, this was an 11-week trial. The jury was out 8 days. It's not like if the jury didn't think about it and came back in 90 minutes and convicted our client. The jury struggled. They had to have struggled because 8 days is. I've never had a case that the jury's been out that long, and it was clear that they had questions, and I really wasn't able to properly defend my client. Mr. Williams did not get a fair trial. When I read this, I think there's like some kind of a defense mechanism when you try a case for 11 weeks that you start forgetting things. When I read this, it brought it all back, and it reminded me of really how unfair the judge was with Mr. Williams, and the detrimental effects that it had for me to be able to properly defend my client.
Well, listen, Mauricio, I appreciate you coming on here, pleading your case, pleading for these facts that, excuse me, these arguments that his appellate team will be making now to a higher court, breaking it down for us, because it can get a bit complicated in the weeds, but you really made it clear for us. So thank you so much, Mauricio Padillo, Mr. Williams' lawyer. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Justin.
All right.
Man, yeah, that was definitely a lot. Like I stated, these things that were being said was pretty much alleged. However, I don't know, but I am interested in knowing if they are going to have him actually testify, have a deposition done or something, because obviously if that rapper who passed away, whose life was unalived, if he directly made a post and said, hey, if something were to happen to me, check such and such, and now y'all not willing to do that, or at one point it would have been possible, but then all of a sudden the judge just changed his mind and struck the witness from being able to, be interviewed or, testify or whatever, and that only witness name was Drake. That's the protection of, his record label. But like I stated, he doesn't have that backing now, or if he does have it, it's not as much as he had before, especially with him going after his label, trying to sue his label over, these allegations that, he has said. This is wild. And, I'm pretty disgusted, especially by those lyrics that he did put in his songs, even if it wasn't true. Just to play around like that, even, knowing that somebody's life was taken and you thought it was funny enough, or you didn't care about it enough, or anyone's feelings in regard, say for instance, his mother or his family or friends, you were willing just to put that in the song and go about your business. Just like the people who actually unalived him got the money, start making text and flashing the money and everything else as if nothing ever happened. This is wild to me. This is wild. I feel like he definitely need to be investigated, interrogated, or questioned, at least, because there's some things going on, that went on with this trial. And like I stated, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but it looked like some shady stuff was done. The judge let some things slide that he shouldn't have. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think, that they would actually have Drake, do a deposition, testify, or anything like that? Do you think he would be able to escape this second go round? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment. Let me know what I can do better, because like I said, I'm new to these streets. If you have a subject or something you want me to react to or talk about, just let me know below. But until then, definitely, you all have a great rest of the holiday weekend. All right, hope y'all was able to spend time with your family and have a good Thanksgiving. All right, peace.